on just campaigning for this year's slate of movies for the Oscars.
I'm going to be 57 years old in a few days. 57. So I'm going for the big 6-0. And it's a shitload of years to be around this damn world. Let's watch about the Oscars.
Probably up to $500 million.
Really?
Yeah. It's a lovely town, isn't it? Hello and welcome to this episode of The Rest is Entertainment with me, Marina Hyde.
And me, Richard Osman. We've just been told it's our 119th ever episode, so there's a real atmosphere of celebration in the studio.
There is also an atmosphere of concern, Richard. How are you?
Oh, I'm all right. Yeah, I've had quite a week of it. I woke up the other night in pain and I had a kidney stone. If anyone at home has ever had one, it's the single most painful thing that's ever happened to me.
I have had one and it is more painful than childbirth, which I've had 3 of.
The doctors kept saying it's more painful than childbirth. I'm not sure I can buy that. Listen,
I can't believe you're going to argue with me about this.
It was super, yeah, I'm going to mansplain. What are we talking about?
We're going to talk about something else potentially painful beginning with a K. We're going to talk about those Kardashians.
That's very good.
Whether we've reached and maybe passed peak Kardashian. Also, we're going to talk about what is an Oscars campaign? Which ones are running at the moment? How much money is spent on campaigning for films or actors or anyone involved in the making of films to get Oscars?
How do you get yourself to the front of that horse race?
Yes, absolutely. We can talk about that.
Yeah, also predicting who's going to win all of the Oscars too.
We're going to ask now, what is an Oscars campaign? You might sometimes read about this, that, they're running a really, really intense campaign.
Well, that's it. We're at the stage now where you can see the runners and riders, and there's about 3 or 4 films that are going to be up for everything, but it seems like people coalesce around particular films, but that's not an organic process. That's something that a lot of money and time is spent on.
I mean, we are committed on this podcast to bringing you the...
So this is about the Oscars before the Oscars, and the Oscars already been by, so it's kind of like old news. Good morning, world. Good morning. I woke up this morning, the cats, made some cookies. I got some, where's the cookies? Got them out of there. We go. I got some chicken for the cats and for us to come over in a bit. And I realize it's March 6th, 2025, and I'm going to be 57 years old. Seems like a lot. Not quite 60. 57. What have I done with my life? I guess it doesn't matter. Whatever's done is done, right? I mean, if I fucked it up, one good thing I've done is taking care of my nieces and nephews. That was good. That was a good deed. Let's see what else they're saying about the Oscars.
Horror Behind the Smiles, and this story is no exception. It's very interesting. The fires, obviously, that have ravaged LA. It's very interesting because all of the studios have donated money to the recovery effort. Each studio of the major big studios have donated about 10 or 15 million each, and some have donated less than that. And somebody pointed out it adds up to the marketing budget of one tentpole movie. But actually, I cannot explain to you how much more will be spent on just campaigning for this year's slate of movies for the Oscars, probably up to $500 million.
Really?
Yeah. It's a lovely town, isn't it?
Because it adds such a lot to the back end of those movies, should they win
Actually,
Oscars.
it doesn't do...
No.
The whole thing is... We'll get to that in the end,
Okay.
but let's talk about Oscar campaigning. Who you're trying to reach, you're trying to reach 10,000 Academy voters, and you can't contact them directly.
And they are people who work in the industry, mainly in Hollywood.
Mainly in Hollywood. There are various rules about what you can and can't do. In phase one, which is pre-nominations, you are selected by your peers. So actors will nominate actors, directors will not, and you don't nominate directors and so on.
So for a big long list of movies. And,
Yeah, but members of the acting branch will nominate their top 5 choices for
Right, okay.
best actor, whatever it is. But you don't need the whole Academy to like you. And in fact, you can actually do it with only a small fraction of people. So it's interesting. The modern way of Oscar campaigning was invented, regrettably, but factually, by Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, yeah.
Because he couldn't really compete. Miramax actually became an indie giant, but had all these sort of great films, but they couldn't compete with the big studio movies because they simply didn't have that same money. So he started this thing of sending out screeners to everybody, saying that actors had to be completely available for it's a really long period. So last year, Jeffrey Wright, who won for American Fiction, said it was absolutely brutal because you are expected to be available for effectively months to do this. I mean, it take you far
And to do
longer.
what? For interviews, for appearances?
Well, we shall get to this. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis, Harvey Weinstein made him go and appear before Congress for My Left Foot and talk to Americans about disabilities.
Okay.
Which, but just he doesn't actually have. You have to do. Okay, so what do they spend this money on?
Yeah.
Hospitality is a big part of it. Wining and dining voters, all that sort of stuff. Community influencers, lunches. Where you can't just give them food. So the stars will have to do a panel at the lunch.
Okay, so it can't just be like an open bribe which says come along to this dinner and we'll feed you. It's would you
Yeah.
like to come along to an event
I will
where
pour champagne.
Jeffrey Wright is talking to Percival Everett?
Yeah, exactly. Fancy literature, and I'm talking they might even produce a coffee table book about their movie and mail it to thousands of people. Indirectly, always indirectly. Art exhibitions, costume exhibits. If you ever see any of these things, it's not like, oh, that's so nice, they just want to share the costumes from the favourite. It's like, no, they want the favourite to win Best Picture, or they want, whatever it is. The favourite, where Olivia Colman won Best Actress that year, they sent actors in powdered wigs to personally deliver cakes to awards bloggers. So you can contact as many awards bloggers and people like that as you like. And there is a sort of financial bonus system. We're going down all the things that cost money.
Yeah.
This is how they're going to spend $500 million
Yeah.
on this. There's a bonus system for nominations, and that everyone from the publicist to the awards consultant. So now we get on to awards consultants, which is a big part of the spend. Right from the development phase, by the way, of the movie, they are thinking, okay, especially with a sort of determinedly prestige project, they're thinking the awards consultant will say, well, which festival should you have you might be able to open Venice, or you might be able to open Cannes, or you should definitely be in competition at this film festival.
And to give it a certain prestige, because
Yes.
that's the key thing with an Oscar film. A lot of films come out, and sometimes you'll see amazing films and they don't get anywhere near the nominations. So you see other films which seem mediocre-ish, and they do. But it's getting that thing of prestige, buzz, and it's word of mouth, and it's making something feel organic and from the ground up. It's faking
but also
that.
like pre-prestige, like, oh, I see it was in competition at Cannes, or it was in whatever like that. And you might have up to, a lot of people, more than a dozen people in a war room working on just one film. And the talent themselves, even at the stage of signing on, will say, what are you going to do to support my movie? Which basically means, how much money are you going to throw at getting me
Can I get an
my
Oscar?
first or third or whatever Oscar? And then, okay, you've got to pay for the talent. So you've got all the fashion, all the, obviously, there's so many businesses, by the way, that depend upon the award season campaigning. Fashion is...
So the part that is not being mentioned here, which I think is very important to understand, is the money laundering elements in the film industry. See, film industry usually has an official budget, and then a private budget, and then a banker's budget. And there's a variety of ways to shuffle money in a movie, inflating costs, deflating costs, lying about costs. Uli Lommel, for instance, right? If you look at his end credits, he's got usually dozens of people. He didn't hire dozens of people. He hired a few people that use dozens of names. So, Hollywood.
Completely symbiotically entwined in it, and labels can be made during award season. Like someone like last year, Loewe became absolutely huge, and everyone was talking about it. It was most interesting red carpet looks, etc., etc. So it can be a really big thing for them.
But it's interesting, that thing that there was a trope a few years ago. Why do they ask women what they're wearing on the red carpet? And this is sexist. They don't ask men.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was, well, they contractually. They had to, because they'd been given this incredible thing and a huge amount of money, and they had to say what they were wearing because that's what they had been asked to do. That's an industry, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, it's a massive. That's a massive industry. But funnily enough, the more wide open an Oscar race is, and I think in lots of ways this year's is wide open. There's no sort of obvious. Not everyone's coalescing around one thing. As you say,
I'm going to tell you who's going to win every single Oscar.
Okay, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to you telling me this. Yeah. Okay, but the more money is spent because they think they're in with it, and there are, as I say, there are whole awards-focused industries. And Netflix, they're such rubes. When they had their first movie, Roma, that Alfonso Cuarón, that they thought was going to maybe get an Oscar, they just was like, okay, well, let's just buy an awards consultancy. So they bought an entire agency.
Wow.
Phase 1, the individual categories can nominate. But then in phase 2, which we're in now, the entire academy can vote
on the shortlist. So the specialists have put the shortlist together, and now the whole academy votes on those shortlists.
Yeah, but all of these processes completely open to various forms of corruption and have been quite obviously in the past.
Excellent.
Let's talk about negative campaigning.
Oh,
negative campaigning, which going to shock you. Harvey Weinstein was a big fan of negative campaigning. But smear campaigning, just saying, there was the time when the producer of The Hurt Locker just sent out an email saying, oh, please bet on our little movie or something over a $500 million movie, which was taken as obviously a reference to Avatar.
Which was, of course, directed by the ex-husband of the director of The Hurt Locker. Yeah.
Luckily, he didn't get into that. So negative campaigning is big, and we can talk about who I think is being negatively campaigned against in a minute.
Okay.
Rogue campaigns, this can also happen.
So, the amount of corruption and money laundering and shenanigans that goes on at the Academy Awards a fraction of the amount of shenanigans that goes on in Hollywood making regular movies. We're not even talking about, sexploitation and North Hollywood, which is where all the pornos are made. But Hollywood is the capital of the pornographic industry. I mean, Ventura Boulevard and North Hollywood are the place where, the porn industry began. So.
Melissa Leo, for The Fighter, a few years ago, she thought, I'm not getting any coverage for this. So she took out all of her own adverts to push her performance in the role. And she did actually get Best Supporting Actress.
Oh, great.
Now, the most controversial recent one was Andrea Riseborough in 2023. She was in this movie called For Leslie, which is about a sort of alcoholic mother. It took $27,000 at the box office, which is not good, as listeners to this podcast will know. However, screenings for this movie, once it came around to awards time, were hosted by Charlize Theron, Jennifer Aniston, Gwyneth Paltrow, who else? Sarah Paulson. There were all these social media posts by lots and lots of actors, Edward Norton, Susan Sarandon, blah, blah. There were so many of them, even Kate Blanchett. The publicists were like, this is just like a grassroots effort. Unfortunately, some of them did use the same wording. It's a little bit like that Victor Anichebe tweet. Do you
football
remember?
tweets,
Yeah, the
yeah.
football one where he, this is a Sunderland striker who once, just his agent had obviously sent it to him, and the thing he tweeted was, "Can you tweet something like unbelievable support?" Yes, he just tweeted the whole thing. So they unfortunately didn't sort of reword whatever they were told, and that caused quite a big scandal.
What was behind that? Money or friendship or?
She's a fantastic actress.
Yeah.
Obviously, for someone to be included, someone else doesn't make it.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of hassle that Danielle Deadwyler and Viola Davis didn't make the nomination. Not therefore, we don't know.
Yeah.
We can't quantify it, but didn't make the nominations. And everyone like, oh, look at all these white.
The underlying theme of this video today for me is this meditation. Every time I turn on the camera and I talk to you guys, it's actually a meditation. It's actually a way of downloading what's in my head. And my head is usually empty. There's usually absolutely nothing up here, which I think is my strongest quality, my best quality. I really don't have anything up here, you know. But I looked at the calendar this morning, this one right here, and yep, I'm like literally a few days away from becoming 57 years old. And any way you cut it, it's gonna fall next. I'm exactly 7 days away from being 57. It's gonna fall on Thursday, and any way you cut that, it feels weird, man. It's like, oh, friggin', I'm going to be almost 70. I'm going for the big 70. My dad is 81, man. And time is just bowling through me. And all the stuff about family and love and suddenly looks very far away. Very, very, very distant. I'm now starting to prepare for dying. Because getting old is about dying. If you're not thinking about death when you get old, you're not thinking right straight. My mother was terrified to die. The last moment she didn't want to die, she was afraid. I do not want to be afraid when death comes. I want death to come. And I can't choose that. But the funny thing is I don't choose death. Death chooses me. But definitely, I mean, I'm closer. I'm 1 year closer than I was a year ago. So 55 didn't really feel 55. It felt still like I was in the 40s. But 57, 56, 57 particularly, there's no turning back.
People campaigning for another white actress. It was a really tricky one. First of all, it drew attention to that someone was saying, oh, look, she only needs 218 actors to put her forward because there are 1,302 actors in the acting branch, and then she can be nominated. And so there was all this sort of open stuff about how you were voting. Christina Ricci put an Instagram post up saying that it was ridiculous that surprise nomination means that actually tons of money wasn't spent on her, because it's so so the fact is
you get so few surprise nominations now because they
effectively buy them.
So
the machines
obvious.
are successful and they work, and it's very, very difficult. I mean, the amount of money spent getting some of the other people on that list, a Best Actress nomination, is way more than the movie that Andrea Riseborough was in.
Furious that
to
Andrea
Leslie
Riseborough
Cost
did it for no money. Just
yes,
people
but
thought she was a good actress.
I mean, it's difficult. To what end all of this happens, I don't know. I mean, the popular thing was, oh my God, it adds so much to the box office. It doesn't really.
Surprise. What is the epilogue of this video? It takes money to make an Oscar. It takes a lot of money. You got to spend a lot of money on getting an Oscar. Why am I not surprised? Butch Freeze, for whom I worked, and if you're watching this, Butch, I love your ass. You're a wonderful guy. You're a mean negotiator, a terrible monster uh, uh, businessman, but nice family man, good dude. So Butch Freeze, I respect profoundly. Had a conversation with my dad, whom I also respect profoundly, but in a different way. And he said, making movies is a rich man's game. Do not make movies and be poor. Yeah, I mean, there's always the Blair Witch Project, which would kind of like dwarf that philosophy. But if you think about the sustainable rich people that actually made movies, they got money. They're not poor. So you want to win an Oscar, get some money. Nazis in America, the origins of rune esotericism, the Queen's last words to me, the dark truth. This is who really rules the UK. Okay, I'm game. Let's check it out.
I think Britain has become less democratic. Gazan immigrants are now allowed to go through the UK. Not a single politician made that decision. Everything that made Britain great is being destroyed by an establishment that hates Britain and hates the West. A man had actually his own children. He was not deported because of his right to family life. That I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party.
What can people do to try and change this?
There's an ideological war going on here. They've said, we want Sharia law in Britain. You can't really talk about this. If you say that these grooming gangs are primarily Muslim, you will be branded a racist. We need to step up.
So nobody came to you and said, listen, these...
I wasn't Prime Minister for very long.
In weeks you'd think someone would come to you and say, listen, we've got this grooming stuff going on.
That I am resigning. Well, you would have thought.
Can you see why people are very disappointed?
Do you think that reform could get in, and would you be there with them, part of them? Your 49 days...
I felt like we were scapegoated. I was told that the audience with the Queen was going to be in Balmoral. I had no idea that 2 days later she would die. The last thing she said to me is...
The moment that you knew you would have to step down...
And I only did it because there was a gun to my head. Thank you. I was literally threatened.
How does that feel?
Bad. It felt bad.
The last 2 months, you guys have really listened when I've asked you to subscribe. Thank you so much. Now, the next step is to ask you on YouTube to hit the reminder notification on my homepage without...
Let's think about this for a second. Information and how it comes across wildly from Hollywood, Great Britain, and the Queen dying, and the Conservative Party in Britain, and the grooming gangs. So much information, so much stuff to consider, to think about. And the truth is, I'm 57 years old pretty soon. I'm going to be 57 years old in a few days. And I have 30 cats, and I don't give a fuck. There's no logic to any of this. This is all, I mean, the amount of chaos that we put up with on a daily basis, anybody puts up with on a daily basis. How do you find in so much chaos any kind of guiding? I mean, in the 4chan, they say surf the Kali Yuga. You have to surf the Kali Yuga. You have to stay above it all, right? That's when you surf. What do? You stay above the water. stay above the waves. You float. Eventually, the wave crashes, and you crash with the wave. It's just what happens. But like this over here, dark truth of who really rules the UK. Well, who cares? Nobody rules nothing, man. It's all temporary. It's all flashes and moments in time that change constantly. Who rules me? That's what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in who rules the UK or who rules the United States or who rules Russia. I'm interested in who rules me. Who rules my acts and my thoughts? And the answer is complex. Because I have to think, what am I? Am I a person or am I a construct of various thoughts and ideas that have been building over the years in my head based on the information that I've gotten and the training and education? How was I educated? By whom was I educated? Everything that I've gone through in life has educated me to think in a certain way. And that is not necessarily the best way to think. Because I'm not omniscient, I'm not omnipotent, I'm not all-knowing. I'm just a guy with a computer having a cup of coffee and eating some cookies 7 days before his birthday. Have I done good in the world? I don't know. Maybe. I haven't done that much bad. I haven't killed anybody that I know of. Have I lied? Occasionally. I used to lie a lot more. I don't lie anymore. I gave up on lying. It doesn't work. Not even hiding stuff works. Lying and hiding stuff. And it's funny because the person you're most likely to lie to is yourself. I mean, people lie first to themselves and then to others. That's how it works. The first lie you tell is always to yourself. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter if I drink rum in the morning. It doesn't matter if I, drink my rum in the morning. This is the most amazingly delicious rum on the planet. If you have not, I'm doing the ad for free, guys, because I love this. If you've not tried Kraken, just do yourselves a favor, get yourself a bottle of this, and just make it your mother's milk. The taste is between vanilla and rum. And it's really, really, really good. It's the perfect way to wake and I'm not an alcoholic. I don't drink
Out
every
that, you'll
day.
miss out.
I just drink when I have rum. This is just coffee, by the way. I was putting the rum in my coffee, but it's so tasty. It's so amazingly tasty. It's just much rather have it just, just like that. Out of the bottle, man. Why put it in your coffee if you could just drink it right out of the bottle? My nephew gave it to me. I'm not giving my rum. Now that's love. When you have an alcoholic uncle and you give him a nice bottle of Kraken, that's called love. That's real love, guys. It takes knowing the heart of the person. Because I don't buy booze often. When I do, it goes down quick. And you know what's funny? This has lasted a week. I've been a week. Usually, when I drink like liquor, a bottle like this will last me a couple of days. But this thing has actually lasted me almost. Nanda left last week, so it's been a whole week, and I haven't been able to finish it. It's so delicious that I have not been able to finish it. I'm getting there, but Nanda, I love your ass. You're the best. You're the absolute best. I don't know who rules Britain. It's clickbait. She's going to tell us who rules Britain. Okay.
She would normally do it at Buckingham Palace, but she wasn't well enough to travel. So we travelled there, my husband and I. It was a very stormy day, and the plane always didn't land. There was a sort of gap that appeared in the sky that we got for him to be Prime Minister because I wanted to change things.
Robots. But I don't think you do.
But the thing about the robot thing is that, when you're a government minister, you have to follow the line of collective responsibility. And that is just very difficult because you're constantly self-checking. Like, have I said something that's gone beyond this line, gone beyond that line? So that is where the robot thing comes from quite a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other people, I guess, who just don't know anything, so they have to be robots because they're just reciting stuff. But I think a lot of it is... And I think that there is a ludicrous amount of focus on politicians who don't necessarily have that much power. Like, why is the Bank of England not being properly scrutinised for printing vast amounts of money, creating a huge wave of inflation? They've only got one job, which is to control inflation, and they failed at it. Oh, actually, their other job's financial stability, and they failed at that in 2022. But there's no kind of worrying about, Andrew Bailey and is he wooden or whatever, or has he done a bad interview? So this is all part of a symptom of a system that doesn't work. And politicians get treated a bit as panto characters. The thing about it was Andrew Gwynn and the WhatsApp group, and isn't he awful? Throw him off stage, and that's the way it's treated. And I find that very depressing not because I'm a fan of his, but because there's serious things wrong with our country. We're talking about the fact there are people trying to impose Sharia law on our country. Yeah. We're poorer than Mississippi. We might have energy blackouts, and yet so much of the mainstream media is just dominated by what is basically panto.
That does seem to be the case, and you're absolutely right. These are the issues, and I get very frustrated because the criticism labelled at me is the podcasts.
You see, you shouldn't go searching for yourself on the internet.
I love the singer.
Now we've found out what the problem is.
I love the singer Andrew Gold. He was from the 80s. Did you know he had some pop songs? It was his same name as mine, and so I
know that one, Gold by Spandau Ballet.
The people sing that at me. Gold, always believe in yourself. I get all the time, so people say, and they sing Andrew Gold's songs as well. He's the guy with my name, but he died.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, his widow contacted me. He was like quite a big name, and he worked with the Beatles and people like that. And his widow got in touch, just saying like, hello, I see you have my my husband. Is it a widow as well? With a man? Yeah,
it's a widow.
My widow's name. Nice to meet you. And I said, oh, hello. And that was that. It was a weird thing about sort of nominative determinism. But yeah, people label that criticism at me in this podcast that it's a distraction, the culture wars. It's all just a bit of a distraction because they don't really want to face the facts that this is about, as you say.
It's civilizational. It's civilizational.
Yeah. It's really scary, and we're getting just people saying, taking silly pops at you and pantomime and the whole the politics of it all. It's just mad. So I don't know. I've got another question for you, but first, tell me a little bit about your book and also anything, where people can they follow you on Twitter and all those kinds of things.
So my book is called 10 Years to Save the West. I've just brought on an edition with 2 new chapters, which covers the whole issue of the general election. My Twitter is Trust Liz. and people have been following me on that.
Oh, I hope they do. I'll put the links down below.
Very good.
And your book is I was saying to you before, just so readable, and it's a real person that is writing it, which is you. It's not ghostwritten, is it?
No.
So I encourage people to go and get hold of that. And who's a heretic you admire?
Like, I guess it's Trump and Milei are the two heretics that I think are actually taking it on. And I think, particularly with Trump, he's refused to be sort of beaten down by an entire establishment that was against. She was physically very frail, but mentally so alert. I had no idea on that day that things were so imminent. I had no idea, because she was talking as if this was the start of something, that I was the new Prime Minister, that she'd be there giving me advice, sort of talking through the issues of the day. She was across everything. We had a very detailed chat for 20 minutes. She met my husband. All of those things gave me no sense at all that her death was imminent. And she ended the meeting by saying, I look forward to seeing you again.
Okay, so those were the last words. So Queen Elizabeth didn't know she was going to die. That was the big reveal of that clickbait. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. See what we got as far as the Rommel commented, it's Baldur's Gate. What is this? I better put some cream on this coffee because it's. I couldn't find the regular coffee. Well, my nephew brought me this one. I didn't buy the regular coffee because my nephew brought me this one, and this has got cinnamon, and the cinnamon just plays havoc on my belly. It's delicious. I adore it, but it plays havoc on my belly. So I best use a little bit of milk on it.
Sponsorship deals I come across, because I just don't think Raid Shadow Legends is very appropriate for the sort of content on this channel. But I know a lot of you like to fall asleep to these report videos, and that's why I thought these Cozy Snug Sleep earbuds from LikeMe really are a match made in heaven for this channel and its viewers. If you're anything like me, you might struggle falling to sleep on your back with conventional earbuds in. I'd always wondered whether there were any designs that facilitated side sleeping without waking up with a perforated eardrum. Not only do these earbuds work wonders for side sleepers, they boast high quality audio, are super lightweight and soft with various different sizes of earwings to pick and choose from, on top of having 21 hours of charge when using the charging case. So, now you can all quickly and smoothly fall asleep listening to me recount the usual litany of mind-bending, reality-shattering experiences that we all know and love. If you're interested, please check out the link in the description, and don't forget to use the discount code VIVEK for 10% off your order. Anyway, we'll crack on with the video now, but be sure to let me know what you thought of the earbuds if you do end up snatching yourself a pair, and thank you to LikeMe for reaching out, I really appreciate it. Set the controls for the heart of the man. A DOM trip report by 77k, posted to Erowid.org October 5th, 2000. I'd been fairly certain ever since I got to Burning Man that I would save the DOM for the night of the burn. My one past experience with DOM was at a dosage level that was slightly too low, at 7mg, but I could see that it was a drug of the absolute highest quality, in the same class as LSD, mushrooms, etc. It would be perfect for Saturday night. I have to begin by giving a summary of the other drugs I did at Burning Man. because any professional drug user at Burning Man needs to put serious thought into day-to-day cross-tolerance.
That's my coffee.
Tuesday was 2CB,
That is my
Wednesday was merely GHB, Thursday was LSD and MDMA, Friday was mushrooms. I figured that I had abstained from the phenethylamines for a few days, so my 11.3 milligrams of DOM wouldn't be too diminished. Looking back, I would say that the 11.3 milligrams was weakened a little,
serious
but the level was still very good.
Man.
Now, I need to describe the set and setting. The setting, of course, is Burning Man.
Yeah.
Within 18 hours of arriving on the desert, I had completely and transparently suspended all disbelief at what I was experiencing. The sheer improbability of this city existing on a scorched alkali plain in Nevada set a base level of improbability for everything else within the city. It was not possible to shake the feeling that this was a complete fantasy land. I had a couple of artworks that I'd brought with me. I had a hard time getting them set up and working properly. It took several days. And I was disappointed that other people there seemed to have ones that were similar and possibly superior to mine. I was upset that sometimes my art didn't work quite right, and I couldn't figure out why it didn't work. I was a little moody for my first couple of days there. Gradually, and with the aid of other psychedelics, I started to tap into the collective unconscious of Black Rock City. Once my art was set up and semi-working, people started to talk to me about it. They told me why they liked it and asked me how I did it, and their completely genuine interest in me and my vision began to...
Okay, just bear with me. We've gone from the Oscars to the last words of Queen Elizabeth to a DMT trip report. And the underlying theme of all this is I'm turning 57 years old in 7 days. What does it mean? What is it all about? What's the logic behind it? I've done a lot of tripping. I've read a lot of trip reports. There's not that many surprises on a trip report. I mean, it's just a trip report. It's just some guy using drugs and talking about it. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. Also, nothing inherently right. I mean, it's just a trip report. See, when you're a psychonaut, the hardest part of it is getting over yourself. It's like realizing that it's not that special. It's not that important. It's not no big deal. It's just, you're just tripping balls. And then get on with your life. Get your life going. My life is 30 cats in a haunted house, and I'm gonna be 57 years old. Have I done what I needed to do in this world? I don't know. It doesn't feel that way. I don't know.
To lift my spirits. I began to understand how Burning Man is not a place to show off your skills. It's a place to express yourself, and to see how 28,000 other people choose to express themselves as well. By looking at the limitless types of art around you, you can truly see the infinite expanse of human creativity. It is both humbling and inspiring in a way so fundamental that it is almost impossible to ignore. Now that Saturday had rolled around, I'd completed my transition from a spectator to a participant. Instead of looking at the city and its citizens as something new to explore with caution, I understood how it was my city, and how my presence there was as important to the greater whole as anyone else's. I felt the freedom to walk down any street and talk to anyone I met. They were my neighbours and friends. I finally felt like I was in the right mindset to experience the burn. I also felt like I was in the right mindset to let the ritual permeate my soul while I was tripping my ass off. Something I was not entirely sure of until today. At 4:30 PM, I ate 11.3 milligrams of DOM on a fairly empty stomach. Several friends also took DOM. Others took 2CB, LSD, mushrooms, 2CT7, MDMA, MDA, and more I'm sure I forgot. Virtually every one of my companions had taken some psychedelic of sorts. The hours ticked by towards sunset. I had my first alert within half an hour, and by about 1 hour I was unquestionably tripping. The intensity increased extremely smoothly across the next 2 hours, and near sunset, at 7:30 or so, I had just about reached the peak. Fluid colours rippled across surfaces. Objects squished and breathed. Music from our reasonably beefy stereo system seemed quieter and distant, but the music itself seemed alien and infused with meaning. The temperature dropped and the wind picked up. I realised that I could hear sounds around me in the greatest detail, and I could localise and recognise noises that came from more than half a mile away across the player. At dusk, the excitement in our camp became palpable. Everyone was rushing around getting their things ready, dressing warmly, smoking pot, getting a bite to eat. I felt my mood elevated and my body energised from the amphetamine lurking inside the DOM's molecular structure. A searing red warning flare shot into the sky. 30 minutes until the burn. The time flew by, and before we knew it, another flare. We had to get out to the man, immediately. A part of our group left. We reached Headway, the inner circular road closest to the man, and I saw that the man's arms had raised towards the sky. I started to run, fast, towards the man. This was a completely unconscious reaction. I neither told myself to run, nor could I have stopped it. It pulled me like a magnet, and I could not take my eyes off of it. Soon, I reached the circle of thousands of people who were sitting and standing, waiting and cheering. It was around this time that I realised I didn't feel like I was tripping anymore. I didn't see waving objects or rippling colour. Things sounded normal. The panorama before my eyes was so far beyond the surreal that my brain did not care it was awash in DOM. Almost immediately, the pyrotechnics began. 100 fire dancers circled in the space between the celebrants and the man, making a blurry, dizzying array of flaming yellow trails. Drums thundered from all sides. The crowd was illuminated with the cool chemical radiance of thousands of glow sticks. The man ignited. Fireworks exploded out of him, and I could feel my retinas become saturated with the spectral purity of burning metal. Then, a pressurized kerosene-powered flamethrower fired off a tongue of flame. Its throttle opened all the way, and a 100-foot column of hell dwarfed the man and illuminated the player like day. An evil, black mushroom cloud drifted up, illuminated by the flamethrower's next blast. For a moment, I thought deeply about Burning Man's relationship with nature. We humans, 28,000 of us, drag our expensive toys out here into the second largest life-free flat space in the United States. The speed of sound was broken by a rocket car here on the Black Rock Desert. Burning Man does not pretend to be an event that is harmless to the environment. While we strictly adhere to the leave no trace rule, that we must leave the player in exactly the condition we found it, we run generators, drive cars, and set things on fire. We pollute the atmosphere, and although we take our trash with us, we generate just as much as when we were at home in our comfortable houses. We bask in the glory of the human species, quietly downplaying the mess we made to get to this point, and stare in slack-jawed awe at the lights of the 7-square-mile city we build from nothing. Yet the Milky Way still glitters above us, putting to shame the piddling multi-watt lasers we shoot at it, and turning away from the city one can only see an endless expanse of night. The desert is so long that the earth curves down and away by the other side. We fire off our flamethrower, and although we can feel its heat on our faces, and we vicariously experience the thrill of the man holding its throttle, to the timeless mountains around us, it is just another bit glighter of the human race. The man falls down, helped by people pulling with all their might on the cables holding him up. When he falls, the crowd rises to their feet and rushes inward, 5 feet from the foot of the fire. I'm crushed by the people around me, and am swept along as the mass of people rotates round the pyre. I'm right at the front of this core of bodies. Sweat pours off my face as 15-foot-high flames irradiate us with millions of watts of power. People chant and yell. Many have brought something symbolic to throw onto the fire. I realize...
Le abro un momento, por favor. Alright guys, the chicken is here, so I gotta go. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.